Hmm. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are tuning in. Thank you so much for joining me today for another edition of Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram Live. Actually, it's just live now on Facebook, but I'll be posting these in the other platforms as well. My name is Christopher Luard, Chris Luard, whichever you prefer. I'll say just a little bit about myself in case some of you might be unfamiliar with my work. So, I am a longtime mindfulness and meditation practitioner. I've been studying various forms of mindfulness and meditation now for about 40 years. I'm actually versed in over 200 forms of meditation, um, which is just lovely. In addition to that, I am also a certified clinical trauma professional with an emphasis on somatic psychotherapy and really working with the body. This, for those of you who are familiar with mindfulness in the Buddhist tradition, these work very closely together because the first foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness of the body. So there's a lot of overlap there. And really, in great part, mindfulness practice is about connecting to the present moment, right? And trauma, by its very nature, the hallmark of trauma, it's rooted in the past. Right? We experience something traumatic in the past, and then we bring those emotions and really bodily sensations up from the past into the present. So, the endeavor of healing from trauma and the endeavor of mindfulness is the same, right? To be in the present moment. So that's a little bit about myself and my work and what I do. And so I'm just going to launch into the talk here. I really don't have much prepared. I have a few notes here and there. I may or may not use them, so pardon my rambling. But the topic of today is acceptance and compassion. And this is tied in. So I do these Facebook Live sessions as a way of leading up to an online program that I'm offering. So this is no exception in that way. I am offering a program called The Healing Power of Kindness, and that launches April 12th and it runs 12 weeks to July 5th. If you want to find out more about that program, please go to my website, www.suchsweetthunder.org. So I got a question around. Oh, so, by the way, yeah, you're always free to send in questions or post questions around these videos, or really anything that might be coming up for you around any of the topics that I speak about and offer. So, I got a question around the course that I'm offering. And so, it is a 12-week course. And the structure is such that we are spending 2 weeks offering kindness to an aspect of ourself that we like, right? That tends to get us kind of warmed up, right? Because usually that feels rather accessible. There are many exceptions to that, of course, and there will be exploring ways of working with those exceptions in the program. So we have 2 weeks of kindness to ourselves, 2 weeks of kindness for an aspect of ourselves that we don't really know that well, right? A neutral aspect of ourselves. And I spoke more about that in a video a couple of weeks ago. So if you want to check that out, that's there for you. Or if you have questions, send them in. Then we want work with kindness to an aspect of ourselves that we don't like very much, right? And that sort of alchemy of discomfort and kindness naturally brings up compassion. So we spend 2 weeks on that, and then that naturally leads to another 2 weeks on practicing self compassion. So it's almost 4 weeks, almost a whole month of compassion practice. And then the last 4 weeks of the program, we move into offering compassion and kindness to the world. So the question I got was, why are we spending so much time offering kindness to ourselves? Isn't this self-indulgent? Doesn't this sort of go against the grain of social activism, of which many people who follow my work know that I'm very engaged in, right? And so I want to speak a little bit about this. I think that's such a great question. So really thank you so much for sending that in. So we may or may not do some meditating here today. Probably not. Um, so I'll just offer the talk, and maybe we'll do a little bit of breathing at the end of the talk. We'll see how it goes. So the reason why I started to develop this type of practice is I noticed that, and for me it was anger, but this works with any emotion. I noticed that when I was angry, that it wasn't so much the anger that was the problem, right? But it was that I was angry and I didn't want to be angry, right? And so, that's when the reactivity would come up, right? That's when I would yell. For me, yelling was usually one of the go-tos, right? Yelling, kicking, punching, screaming, shouting, any variation of those. Those are typical ways we tend to cover over the feeling of anger. So here we start to, offer kindness to that feeling, right? So then the anger can still be there, right? But now we have a way of holding space for that anger without yelling, punching, kicking, screaming, or shouting, right? This is very helpful because now the anger can actually serve its intended purpose, right? We get angry to help us feel safe, right? The anger helps us mobilize our energy, right? Sympathetic energy arises. This is a physiological response to a threat. Right, so the inquiry that I often like to offer to myself when I'm feeling that rising anger is, how much of this anger do I need to feel safe right now? Right? Usually it's a lot less than the immediate hit, right? It's a lot less than I'm angry and I don't want to be angry, so I'm pushing it down. Right? When that happens, it magnifies the anger. We go into suffering. Right? And then we cause suffering for not only for ourselves, but for others. So to meet the heat of anger with, "Aw, may you feel safe. May you feel safe." Right? So the anger is there, but a lot of the heat sort of simmers down. So that's a great place to be, because now we can move forward, allowing the anger to direct us, right? We don't need to yell, kick, punch, scream, shout, because we've developed a comfort to be with that anger. So now the anger can inform us what the danger is and what the most skillful way to eradicate that danger will be. So this is one of the reasons why we spend so much time in this course offering kindness to ourselves. So kindness to ourselves is really kindness for everyone, for the world. And I want to qualify that a little bit. So, when I meet somebody who, I have, maybe some tension there for whatever reason. Maybe they said something to me that I interpret as being offensive, right? Goes against my moral compass, let's say. Then tension arises in the body. That's the first response, the first reaction, interoception. The body responds. That's before it gets into our emotion centers of the brain, right? So a pattern of sensations land in the body, right? Then without any practice, without any mindfulness, that pattern of sensations triggers the emotion. Now I'm angry, or now I'm sad, or now I'm frustrated, or now I'm upset, whatever it is, right? So by developing the habit of meeting ourselves with kindness, when somebody says something offensive, that pattern of sensation lands in the body, I can meet that with kindness. I can hold that. So another way to frame all of this is that this is nourishing our window of tolerance. Nourishing our window of tolerance, right? So, when I offer kindness to myself, my window of tolerance expands. I can hold more. I'm less reactive. Right? And this is one of the reasons why meditating on compassion, meditating on kindness is so helpful. Because it just gradually increases our window of tolerance so that we can hold more and more of the discomforts of life. And so, when we accept, when we offer compassion to how we're feeling, this gives us a way in to really exploring those challenging feelings while staying safe. Right? Because if I'm judging myself, right? Let's change the emotion here. We've talked a lot about anger already. So maybe I'm feeling frustrated, right? I don't want to feel frustrated, right? And so when I can hold that, then I can, if I don't want to feel frustrated and I try to look at it, it's only going to make me more upset, right? And I won't be able to look at it in a holistic way, right? I'll only be able to see the shades, the shape, the outline of the frustration, right? But if I can accept, oh yeah, that was a really frustrating experience, and maybe, part of that is I didn't know, to recognize that I didn't know that. I was ignorant in that situation, right? So then when I can see that completely, then I can look at the blind spots, right? And make adjustments accordingly. But if I'm like, oh, I hated how I showed up that way, and I'm gonna really change next time, and this is the effort of changing with unacceptance, with non-acceptance. I'm gonna force myself to change. I'm gonna be better next time. I'm gonna learn something. It never works, right? Because that forced energy is very closed, very tight, very contracted, very defensive, right? And the process of learning is a taking in, right? So our nervous system, it serves our nervous system to be open and receptive, right? When we're trying to learn something. If we're filled with doubt, or if we're filled with resistance or pain or non-acceptance, very challenging to make a change from that place. So here I want to lead into a little bit of politics and social change and how we can use this for that. So, in America, I was born for better or for worse and within the borders of America. And in America, there's this movement amongst white people to bury the fact of slavery. Right? 400 years we enslaved harshly, really beat and tortured black and brown bodied people. Right? That's a fact. Right? Now, many, many white people, when they hear things like that, they get very uncomfortable. And they want to push that away. So when we can meet that discomfort with kindness, oh yeah, my people did that. That was horrible. Can I feel kindness towards the tension in my body that's arising? Can I meet that? So remember, shame, guilt, those are patterns of sensations. If we can recognize the emotion as a pattern of sensations, then we stay out of the storyline. Right? So if the guilt comes up, the shame comes up, that's good. Guilt and shame are cohesive emotions that keep a culture and a society intact. Right? So that guilt, that shame around, if you're a white person, that guilt and shame around the history of America, that's good. We want that. But we also want to develop a way of being comfortable with that. Not denying our past, right? But holding the guilt, the shame with kindness. So then the shame, the guilt that's there can guide us forward, right? If we can hold it with kindness, right? Because as long as we feel that shame coming up around what we did historically, then we're going to keep denying it, pushing it down, and keep repeating it over and over again, right? So important to really, if you can, to really pay attention to the education departments in your local area in America, because they're gutting the Department of Education. And they're doing that so they can install nationalist education. So all of the education, high school up through college, no more liberal arts if the current administration gets their way. There won't be any more liberal arts programs. There won't be any equal rights, right? Because it's all about, strengthening the nation for these people. So we have to get comfortable. We have to accept, yeah, this is what we did, and accept how we feel about that. And then we can start to move forward. This only happens if we have a very strong education system that can teach us the hard truths and teach us to be compassionate to ourselves around those hard truths. So, we don't find peace by avoiding our discomfort, right? But we find peace by finding a way to be kind, or at least accepting of our discomfort. And that gives us a window in to explore that discomfort wholly, completely. We can look at all of the ways we developed that discomfort. And then we can start to heal. I won't do a meditation here because I'm trying to make these videos a little bit shorter so I can put them up on Instagram and other places that have time limits on their videos now. But I have hundreds of videos on YouTube. So many of them are on compassion and kindness. I offered several meditations previously in this series as well. They're on my Facebook page or again on YouTube. And I'm also noticing this really interesting pattern of light that's shining through my eyes. It gives me this kind of a wonderful air of profundity. That was totally unintentional. Yeah, so thank you all for being here. If you're interested to sign up for the course, The Healing Power of Kindness, 12-week immersive online meditation course, please go to the website www.suchsweetthunder.org and check it out. Love to see you there. Hi, Hannah. Lovely to see you. Yay. Welcome. I'm just closing up the session, but it's recorded, so check out the recording. I hope you're doing well and staying safe, Hannah, and everyone. Yeah, stay safe, stay well, everyone. I miss you too. Say hi to everyone there. I'm going to ring the bell and close this out.